They're lying, Kyle. We know that they're lying. They know that they're lying. They know that we know that they're lying. We know that they know that we know that they are lying. But they keep lying, right? What a mess, Kyle. DarbyCast Wildcard Friday. Kyle and I, if we were into drugs and alcohol, would be just going to town on it. Because there's some frustration happening in us. Kyle, you're a part of this. But we got to put things into perspective, Kyle. Why would professional liars in media and government change their tune all of a sudden, even in the face of incontrovertible evidence of their wrongdoings? Boy, are things about to get goofy. Or they would if people were in the right mindset. And I've been going back and forth, Kyle, with myself, a little internal debate. Do I unleash somewhat of a psychological kraken upon whoever's listening to this? It will not affect heroes. But if an episode like this makes it into the ear holes of somebody who's constitutionally evil, it might create some sort of paranoid panic disorder. Wouldn't that just be awful, Kyle, of me to do? Now let's pivot for a second and talk about an unrecognized group. Graduates from Courdon Bleu University. Talk about amazing. Talk about a heavy mantle to rest upon one's shoulders. Not only are you charged with the duty of issuing flavor blasts to the palates of whomever, but you're also in the space where you have to not poison elites, right? I was thinking about this. Back in the times of feudalism, low ethics kings and queens would have professional food tasters because they were such bad people that they knew that people were going to absolutely perform whodunits on their meals. And that is a lesson that I think a lot of media execs, politicians. Kyle, did my dog just moan? She's sick of it as well. But media execs, politicians, tech money, Wall Street investors, I don't think they recognize that they should be employing food tasters because Courdon Bleu University exists. And at Courdon Bleu, I don't know this for a fact, but I don't think they make you take Native American studies courses where you learn about the religious traditions of the Hopi Nation. I think they have upper division poisoning classes. Electives, Kyle. You don't have to do vagina monologue studies at Courdon Bleu because that's not going to help you advance your career and get you where you want to be. I tell you what will, Kyle, is knowing when to put some Doritos minced in a salad. Kyle, have you ever used paprika? Because I haven't. You know who has? That's right. People who graduate magna cum laude with honors from Courdon Bleu University. They get their chef's hat. I don't know what that graduation ceremony's like at all. But I think we can all imagine the pageantry that goes into that. Being gifted a chef's hat, tall chef's hat, a physical reflection of your high altitude character. You ever seen a hat like that, Kyle? Because I haven't. Saffron, Kyle. Paella is a Spanish dish. I wouldn't even begin to know how to start that. I think rice is involved. Shrimp, Kyle. Have you heard of it? But now let's do a little bit of a dipsy doodle, right? Say you're a guy like Chuck Schumer, for example. It's just a name I made up. Say you had been lying about a lot of things for a really long time. Okay, Kyle? Imagine going on national television and telling lies to compound your lies because you're in too deep, right? Kyle, you ever told a fib in your day and you try to CYA? You ever try to prop up lies with more lies, Kyle? I doubt you've ever done that. You're a straight shooter. But imagine what it would be like if you started telling some pretty massive lies. And then to cover up your lies, you had to start calling everybody else liars. But like everybody knows that you're a liar. And it's starting to look pretty pathetic at this point. And it's really upsetting a lot of people. Can you imagine being in that scenario, Kyle? Let's just say, Kyle, that your name's Chuck Schumer. And that to relax, you go into a dungeon and rake a rusty, crooked dagger over your palm, bleed on a pentagram, and rub your penis on a picture of Fauci. I know that's a bit of a stretch, but just put yourself in that space. You're asking the devil daily, if not more frequently, give me the power to lie, project, defend. But it's like everybody knows. Everybody knows about the lies. In fact, there's more lies that people are finding out about daily. Now let's dipsy-doodle our way back towards Le Courdon Bleu. Elite people, but not the only ones in our society, right? There's lifeguards. There are landscapers. There are butlers. Let's celebrate butlers for a second, okay, Kyle? That's a tough role to step into. You've heard about other jobs, but you say, I want to wear a tux every day and potentially get treated like shit by people who don't work very hard at all. There's something pretty impressive about that. There's also elements that are confusing. Why would you subject yourself to that? But some people pursue excellence for the sake of excellence. Go ahead and regard the people at Le Courdon Bleu, Kyle. Okay. So I was thinking about this the other day, and this may induce somewhat of a panic disorder in the minds of people who they have told way too many lies. Like, listen, I think a lot of us have stretched the truth occasionally. That's part of life. It's not a beautiful part of life. It's not listening to classical music while sunning yourself, Kyle, which is something that everybody needs to treat themselves to from time to time. But some people lie way too much, right? They have a lot of support staff. And I don't think the support staff is being effectively vetted. If I could speak directly to the elites, I would say you need to exhaustively vet all of your staff members because you don't know which ones are going to take you out. And here's the deal. You're never going to find out. There's always going to be rogue staff members. There's always going to be people that are really good actors who got into a profession that isn't acting because they said, the silver screen's not for me. Landscaping it is. Le Courdon Bleu, I'm here to move from cook to chef. The name's Francois Bonewell. Let's Anglicize that a little bit, Kyle. Frank Bonewell. You cannot guarantee that your security staff or you will be able to see through the tasty flavor explosions that Frank's bringing to your children's breakfasts. You can interrogate them all you want, but there's something that's untouchable about a guy named Frank Bonewell that you're never going to be able to access. Right, Kyle? Oof. If I were like a journalist, not even a news desk anchor, if I was just some staff writer for the Daily Beast or Vox or the St. Louis Dumpster Fire, what's their publication called, Kyle? The Memphis Crime Spree? What do they call these newspapers in these failing places? But I'd be terrified to be a journalist, even a low-level one. And these people are not wealthy enough to have full-time staff, but they probably go to high-end parties. And they're just having conversations with random investors named David Axelberry. And Axelberry's trying to say that fascism is coming to America. All the while, Frank Bonewell's taking a careful inventory of who will be receiving an extra special cocktail instead of a, like hint of lime. Could be a hint of hemlock. I don't want this for anybody, but I will tell you that if you're a jerk, Kyle, people don't listen to this show to hear notifications from your cell phone. Okay. Shut it down. I don't want bad things to happen to people. But let's just say that the support staff of the world, waiters, waitresses, hostesses, valets, this would keep me up at night if I were somebody who worked at CNN. When's the car bomb coming? I would think about that all the time. I'd never valet my car. I would make all my own food. I wouldn't let my kids go anywhere because I'd be afraid for everyone that I knew. Kyle, do I have odd thoughts? Maybe. Fair point. But good golly, panic disorders could be on the rise in a lot of people. I could see this because, again, everybody knows. Everybody knows who the liars are, who the traitors are, who the warmongers are, who the people are who are ruining the country. Do these people think that, they are somehow semi-anonymous? Don't get me wrong, the real string pullers, not known by a lot of people. Kyle, you and I have the lists, right? But I would just be really cautious about tweeting about my love for drag shows if I were a left-leaning journalist on Twitter. These people are pretty shameless about their culturally destructive ideas. And it's all right, Maggie Axelberry. Was it Axelrod or Axelberry? What did I say earlier, Kyle? The wife of David Axelberry, investor. They would both be at a party, right? Maybe a pool party. An indoor pool party? It's the worst kind of pool party I've ever heard of. All the while, you've got Frank Bonewell, chef extraordinaire, making prawns. I think those are oversized shrimp, Kyle. I'm not in a hurry to go see what those taste like. But I can imagine what it would be like if Frank Bonewell was putting some caviar on some prawns. I don't know if that's a good flavor pairing, but imagine if it's not caviar, right? It's some kind of weird thing that we've never even heard of. There is sacred, secret knowledge that is passed on to the elite graduates of Courdon Bleu University. They don't give it to all the grads. If you graduated middle of the class, kind of bottom of the class, if you just squeaked by, the professors are not bringing you into the inner circle where they're introducing you to chemical compounds that are very deadly and need to be handled with the utmost care. I'd be worried that this was going on if I were a chronic liar, if I had altars to demons in my house. Imagine if your name was, I don't know, I'm just going to make up random names, like a Liz Cheney or Adam Kissinger, Pete Buttigieg, Anthony Fauci, Joe Biden, Dr. Jill. I'm just making up these names as I go. Obviously, they sound pretty silly. Chuck Schumer, Jerry Nadler. It's a pretty goofy sounding name, isn't it, Kyle? Eric Swalwell, Gavin Newsom, Bill de Blasio, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. That was pretty good, wasn't it, Kyle? I rattled off some random names, but I get the sense that if any of those goofy, hypothetical, made-up fairy tale names were mine, that I would have right cause to be concerned. And I would skip pool parties from here on out, especially the indoor ones, because you don't know what Max LaBute, Kyle, HVAC specialist, you don't know what he's done to the AC or the heating system, depending on the time of year. Boy, would that just freak me out. If I were somebody at a normie, left-leaning party. I'm trying to tell people about how amazing black people are and that whitey needs to go. But all of a sudden, I'm starting to furtively bounce my eyes around the room. And then my furrowed brow turns into a look of horror because I realize I don't know any of the support staff. They're all wearing masks as mandated by the fat cat throwing the indoor pool party. So sloppy. What kind of a host are you? What kind of a person are you if you build an enclosure around a pool? You look at the server's name tags if you're an elite and you start to wonder, is that a fake name? Jenny Adios? That doesn't sound like any name I've ever heard of. Gosh, this would be scary. I don't want this for any of the elites. But I'm just saying that, like, this would be my reality. I can imagine what it would be like. Every time I left the house, I would have to worry that the Amazon driver was a rogue assassin. Any second-rate assassin could get his hands on an Amazon truck and a uniform. Gosh, this is just going to be the life of a lot of lefties. Even people who shouldn't really be concerned with their safety. Kyle, could this episode cause a lot of psychological damage to people? It could. Oops. Yeah. If I were left-leaning and influential, I'd be so terrified of tree trimmers. Are you here to shape that liquid amber tree? Or does your utility belt contain some kind of futuristic weapon that nobody will be able to trace? How do you get your hands on that? I don't know. These are all just hypotheticals, Kyle. So scary, these times in which we live. There are a lot of service workers that could be upset about the way things are, going. Imagine a top-notch personal trainer who visits someone's house and says, I totally got you on bench press, Anderson Cooper. You're fine. Let's load up the plates. Let me give you a lift off. And he knows it's more weight than Koopa Loop can handle. And a 1 and a 2 and a... Right, Kyle? Elites should listen to this episode to prepare themselves to stay safe. You can't send your kids to school anymore, gang. You don't know whether the preschool teacher, Jessica Justice, you don't know whether that's her family name or whether she's adding insult to injury. Yeah, if I were an elite, I would start looking for patterns in people's names. I'd also try to figure out how to stay safe by analyzing a lot of numbers. Look for numerical symbolism. Because that's the only thing to really keep yourself safe. Is starting to notice seemingly unrelated patterns everywhere. Oh gosh, the number 22 keeps showing up for me. Uh-oh. That could mean that danger's right around the corner. And that cleaning service is not just going to fluff and fold your laundry. They're going to fluff and fold your whole world. And now's not the time to get selfish and think about self-preservation because you have to be worried about your family members. Imagine you're a military drone pilot, Kyle, and you've been ordered to firebomb people from Kentucky for one reason or another. Do you really want to do that when that neighbor 3 doors down is a quote-unquote electrician? Can you really be sure if that person's safe? The pieces might start coming together. Remember, think about the number 22 often, because that's a dead giveaway. Is that the technician from Cox Cable? Because he looks suspiciously like HVAC tech Max LaButte. Why is that guy named Frank? They're not naming kids Frank anymore. These are the thoughts you need to have to keep yourself safe if you're an elite. Frank Bonewell. Nobody can guarantee the Frank Bonewells aren't going to just start popping up all over the place. Wouldn't that be terrifying? If you were tucking your kids in and one of them asked you, is it normal for all my substitute teachers to be named Francois Bonewell? Elites are going to start losing it. They have every right to. But they've kind of dug their own grave, have they not, Kyle? If you lie all the time and everybody knows that you're lying, but you continue to lie, and it's really negatively affecting people, nobody can guarantee your safety. You got to come clean and be like, listen, publicly execute me, make an example out of me. That's the right thing to do, Kyle, as far as I've heard, as far as I've read in textbooks. That's not my idea. None of these are original ideas, right? So I can't get in any trouble for this episode. These are just things I've heard about, read about, and I'm just digesting them and then saying, guys, look out for these things. Be careful. We don't want anything bad to happen to you. I sure don't, but I can't guarantee what other people want for these hypothetical made-up people. Don Lemon, Kathy Griffin. I'm pretty good at making up names today, Kyle. Ellen DeGeneres, that's just another name I made up. Kyle, imagine if you were a lesbian named Ellen DeGeneres and you had to carefully consider whether any of these gals that you were spending time with, trying to seduce, what if they went to Le Courdon Bleu? What if their paella is not on the level? And that can be interpreted as a metaphor or quite literally. Gosh, if I were an elite, I would get food tasters. That'd be my first order of business. But who wants to sign up to do that, right? Who's going to be a food taster knowing full well that Max LaButte and Frank Bonewell are out in the world? Sandy LaPlage? Anglicize it? Sandy Beach. That doesn't sound right. Normally, I'm not on the side of the elites, right, Kyle? But I feel like it's my duty to prevent people from getting in harm's way. How well do you know your nannies? How well do you know your children's friends' parents? If you're an elite. How well do you know your dog walker? How well do you know any of the people with whom you come into contact? How much do they know about what you've done? That's what I would consider if I were an elite. Why does any of this matter? Because the currency could tank at any moment. And then no amount of money that you're paying your lifeguard, Richard Power, Dick Power, no guarantees that he's going to do the right thing. He could be hiding a sniper rifle in a pool noodle. Check your pool noodles. If you're an elite, you got to do a thorough search of your whole house. Not just looking for pool noodles with weapons stashed in them, but the cameras and the tiny microphones. How many people have been in your house in the past 3 years? Do you know all of them well enough to say for sure that they didn't plant tiny microphones in some of your light fixtures? How well do you know your dentist if you're an elite? How do you know he didn't put something screwy in your fillings? You got to check those as well. I'm a good guy, right, Kyle? Kyle? If you're a tech millionaire and you've got a custom skate park in your backyard, do you know that whole thing wasn't rigged with things that were inappropriate? You got to dismantle that whole thing. Your car, that thing needs to be ripped apart and inspected immediately. All of your hedges need to be inspected for bugs. And I'm not talking about aphids or ladybugs. Roly-polies, Kyle? When was the last time you saw a roly-poly? Are we experiencing some kind of roly-poly disaster, Kyle? That wouldn't get any coverage because the media's too busy lying about stuff that's like really obvious. January 6th was not a big deal. Tell you what was a big deal is that fella George Floyd. Boy, did he die of a drug overdose. And then the entire establishment authorized people to riot and burn stuff down. And then they insisted that it wasn't about that. The riots didn't happen. And if they did, they weren't that bad. And if they were bad, you deserved it. Listen, I know how to keep you guys safe, elites. Nobody's giving you this kind of coaching, right? Your computers? Do you know about the file systems? You know about the root folders, admin privileges? I would recommend taking all of your technology and beating it with a hammer. Lots of hammers. Sledgehammers. Custom clothing, Kyle, should also be inspected if you're an elite. I've heard about nanotechnology where microphones can be fit into the darndest of places. It's important that if you have custom clothes and that you're not ultra tight, if that tailor isn't family, okay, and your name is Wolf Blitzer, it's a name I just made up, you got to cut up those suits. Gosh, wouldn't that suck that you just couldn't eat anything at a restaurant anymore? Fun fact, a lot of people, a lot of DarbyCast doctors are Courdon Bleu grads. I don't know that all the way, but I just get the sense. Because high integrity intellectuals are drawn to the DarbyCast. They have been for quite some time. And that trend will only continue to snowball until critical mass is reached. But this episode is more for the elites to keep you guys safe. That's what we all want for you. How well do you know your postman if you're an elite? Those packages that have been coming for you? The letters? Hell, even real estate flyers. There are so many realtors out there, and they're just driving around in their cars. Are you sure they're realtors? They could be Russian. They could be Russian agents. And we know about Russians. They hate our freedom. They hate our way of life. Are you sure that your spouse hasn't been replaced by a robot? If you're an elite, how do you check that? I don't even want to know, right, Kyle? Do you try to hit them with an EMP? What if it's more advanced tech that can't be stopped by an EMP? Maybe you take that robot out with bludgeoning just to stay safe. Do you know where your mattresses and pillows were sourced from if you're an elite? I'm trying to keep you safe. And I'm not even covering all the bases. You got to use your imagination and think about who painted your house. Could they have put something in the paint? Whether it's a microphone, whether it's a chemical agent that's activated when the heat's either too high or too low in your house. Check your thermostat. You got to make sure it stays at 69 degrees. I just get the sense that that's the number. Or else there's no telling what could happen. Unless, right, Max Labatt, who loves of being 69, in which case 69 is not safe. But let's get back to the number 22. It's showing up everywhere for you. What does that mean? Are those garbage men okay? That take away your refuse? Hard to say. And who does this affect? Does this only affect the top of the food chain? Maybe. It could affect, like I said, just freelance staff writers. It could affect low-level project managers at Facebook. I don't know the extent of what's going on, but I'm just trying to keep everybody safe. The home security system, quote unquote, that you had installed, you poor thing. That is the most likely whodunit of all whodunits. Sydney LaChance? You were buying that the text name was Sydney LaChance. You got to analyze everybody's first and last name, and you need to ask people their middle names for safety reasons. And some elites might hear this and think that they can trust their security team to do all this for them. How well do you know your security team? Arthur McRage? Not a family name I've heard of. Now, what's really going to be dangerous is when names are not deliberately goofy. Adam Williams. That's a name that could show up for you. Matthew Porter. Your doorman with the last name Porter? I don't know. You might want to look into it. I've heard that if you take a hypodermic needle, you can squeeze inappropriate things through cork. What does that mean? You've got to check your whole wine collection. And you might have a massive wine collection if you're an elite. You love your grape juice. Have you run a full background check on the pharmacist? Leslie Labutte? Les Labutte? Goes by Les? That doesn't seem industry standard, does it, Kyle? All I'm saying is that if you've told a lot of lies, or you've gone along with a lot of things, just be careful. I'm looking out for you, and not everybody's going to do that. You sure those birds aren't spy drones? You sure that stray cat is who he says he is? Start the vetting process, is what I'm trying to say, and leave no stone unturned. That window washer, are you absolutely certain that he didn't go to Courdon Bleu and then decide his real passion was keeping windows squeaky clean? Boy, would I just be freaked out every day if I in any way supported the current regime, carried water for them. I'm trying to look out for you guys, both the people in power and kind of middle management. I don't think the lower scale workers have to worry as much, but I'm not sure, right, Kyle? Everybody's got right cause to be concerned in this political climate when Hitler could just pop out of nowhere. You got to be ready for that. That will come without a whole lot of warning. What's that warning? The wind picks up. So just be very on your guard if the wind pops up. Run home. But be careful that you know the route that you're running home. If you're getting in your car, how long did you leave it parked there? Was somebody watching your car the whole time? Could that person who was charged with the duty of watching your car, can they be trusted? Are they collaborating with those stray cats, quote unquote? Hard to say. If I were an elite, I'd be pretty freaked out and I might move somewhere remote. But you don't know who's in the woods, who has access to caves in the desert. I'd be freaked out. Okay, Kyle? I'm just calling it out. Private planes, Kyle? I didn't even think about that. The pilots could be automatons. Very convincing looking specimens. Once they're at cruising altitude, all bets are off, right? I'd be freaked out to go to parties. I would. Halloween parties? That's a ways away, Kyle, Halloween. But everybody's wearing a silly mask? Not so silly after all. Considering what's going on. I'd be upset if I had really expensive artwork in my house, or even inexpensive artwork. Any artwork in my house. Kyle, can an artist ever be trusted? That painting you bought from Jacksonville Jaguar? And didn't his cell phone end in 5722? Whew, rough time to be an elite. A lot of fun and games. Things were good. People could be counted on to not do anything inappropriate. But as things are now, your whole house could be entirely bugged. People know your entire schedule and routine. They know everything about your spouse, your kids, your relatives, your folks. It's important that you communicate all that you've heard in this episode to the people closest to you. Tell them about it. Tell them the possibilities. Explain to them what you think is going down. If I were an elite, I would say it would be in my best interest not to trust anyone, especially new people, but definitely not old people. Not necessarily senior citizens, but people maybe that you've known for years. Method actors dedicated to their craft. They went to the LA Film School, and you just gobbled up that credential thinking that they were some kind of film student burnout. Uh-oh. Right? Kyle. If I were a treacherous elite, Kyle, if I were aligned with their program, if I ever tried to shame somebody for not getting I might be in this category as well. This could extend to a lot of people. Not just the uber wealthy, not just the tech millionaires, not just the journalists. Do you know that your kid's Xbox is totally safe? The stuffed animals? Bet you didn't check those. The eyes could have cameras in them, and you're just leaving them in your kid's bedroom? The sailing instructor, Curtis Pringle. Pringles? Once you pop, you don't stop? You might pop your boat. You can't do that anymore until this all blows over. And I can't guarantee how long this will go on. What do we call this episode, Kyle? No guarantees? Or Frank Bonewell? Francois Bonewell? Maximilien Lebut? Lebut. So let's quickly recap things that aren't safe, potentially. Your food, your clothes, your house, anybody with whom you come into contact. The number 22, 69 degrees, but also potentially other degrees. Did you install your thermostat yourself? Doubtful. HVAC tech. Lebut strikes again. What if there's just some massive army? What if a bunch of people hear this podcast? Bunch of jokesters, and they think it's funny to wear name tags that say, "Hi, I'm Francois," or "Hi, I'm Max," or "Hi, I'm Richard Power, Dick Power." And I've mentioned a lot of guys' names, but women are far more crafty than guys are. Check the weather report, see if wind is picking up. because that could indicate that Vladimir Putin and Hitler are about to show up in a motorcycle and sidecar. And then Trump's somewhere. Ugh, so scary. But I think that's going to do it for DarbyCast Wildcard Friday.